Welcome to The Choice to Grow. I'm Scott Schwenk. Through these dialogues, we'll explore fresh perspectives and discover practical tools for navigating a thriving life that adds value wherever we are. I'll introduce you to innovators and creators from across our world who embody what it means to cultivate growing as a way of life. Let's prepare together. Take a deep breath in. Hold the breath briefly as you soften your shoulders and soften the soles of your feet and palms of your hands. Then exhale like you're releasing tension and setting down a heavy burden from every cell. Now let's dive in. Welcome everybody. My name is Scott Schwenk, and it is a joy to welcome you to this series of dialogues we're calling The Choice to Grow. And it is my deep honor and joy and playful, fun time to have to welcome us all to be here together with Kim Barta. Kim Barta is a globally recognized psychotherapist, an award-winning speaker, and an international workshop leader. He's widely known for his expertise in shadow work, including his meta model for shadow work. We'll unpack that. His unique shadow to spirit protocol developed during his 30 years working on a Native American reservation, and his shadow trilogy, Illuminating Shadow, Healing Shadow, and the 7 modalities of shadow work. Quick aside, shadow is a term that some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not be familiar with. And Kim has a lot more to share about this than I do. I'm always learning, but my understanding of shadow is these aspects of ourself, challenging and even really wonderful qualities that we are unaware of. We have walled them off for one reason or another. We've separated some aspect of ourself from them. And there's such a gift in working with somebody like Kim or people he's trained to bring these aspects back into the light of day and really recognize, excavate not only our own wholeness, but our capacity to bring forth wholeness for the greater good for all beings. He's worked deeply with Terri O'Fallon, who happens to be his sister from Stages International that they co-founded. It's an organization that researches and teaches the evolution of consciousness. His new work is focused on launching his meta model on relationships. Kim founded kimbarta.org, and this is where you can get a free shadow assessment and a free relationship assessment to help you start and deepen your conscious journey. And I'll just say from my own experience, I've spent time with Kim in personal settings with groups, offline and retreat together, where we were all sitting in circle. One of the most enormous-hearted people I've ever encountered. In watching Kim deal with life, there's nothing that's not workable, not one thing. There's a way he's worked with himself and continues to go through the process of waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up that allows him to bring a level of compassion that's free from any need for personal recognition. So with that, I say, welcome to you, my friend, my brother, and mentor, Kim Barta.
Scott, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. That was so sweet of you. And I just want to let you know that I hold you so deep in my heart in the times that we've been together in these different workshops and places that we've been together, these gatherings. Your heart is so big, your mind is so open, and your spirit is so alive. And it's just been nothing more than an absolute delight to get to know you and let our relationship evolve.
Awesome. I feel the same way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So for the listener, the way these dialogues emerge, they may partially sound a little bit like an interview as we're drawing out certain things, but really it's a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's under a heading that we call emergent dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And emergent dialogue is something we're going to learn about together as we go from episode to episode. It's a way to meet life where our past or our distorted memories of our past are not what's organizing the present or the future. We're actually become more and more available to what life can bring for the highest good of everyone involved. So with that said, Kim, when you hear the term, the choice to grow, what does that evoke about your own life?
Well, the choice to grow is actually a profound decision, what probably the most profound decision any of us can make. And on a personal level, just being raised on a farm in central Montana where we had to get the crop in or we might not have enough money to live, we might lose the farm, in a place where I was raised devout Catholic and our decisions were made for us in a way, in a environment in rural Montana where, open-minded thought was maybe not the most rejoiced experience to make that choice. And I had beautiful mentors that allowed me to do that. So sometimes when we say we make the choice is ours to make, but the choice also comes about by those beautiful people that we have met or connected that help awaken us a little bit to see that we do have choices that we never knew that we had. My sisters, my brothers, um, were great models for me. Even my mother and my father, in so many different ways, were great models for going, you do have choice here. And each one of them in different ways. So maybe closed in certain ways, but open in other ways. And by putting together all the open ways, I kind of discovered that as a teenager, it's like, wow, I don't just have to be a particular format. I can choose the best of everybody I've met and choose that modeling as a way to enhance my overall growth.
Yeah.
So the choice is not just, oh, I'm this great individual peak person that does this all on my own. It's about the nuance and the deliciousness of being with other people and going, oh, wow, look at the treasure in them. And we're all humans. We're all part of that human spirit. And if they have that treasure, I can find that treasure in me then and grow. So when I talk about the choice to grow, it's got nothing to do with, oh, look at Kim, he grew. It's about, wow, look at all the amazing people that I've had a chance to meet and interact with and draw on that helped me on that beautiful journey. And 30 years of working on the Native American Reservation, yeah, they were multi-generational trauma abuse victims, but oh my God, every one of them had just these beautiful, beautiful gifts to give me. So I never considered it, ooh, I'm the guy coming in to heal all these people. It's like, ooh, this is a beautiful relationship where I can give them relief and healing, and they can give me all this beautiful wisdom that they've had from their life. And that's how I treat every single person I meet. And that's how I treat every client that I have. Not that just that I'm this top down, I'm going to heal you, but what is the beautiful deliciousness of humanity that we have to share together?
The beautiful deliciousness of humanity, is that what you would say? Is that the same as the treasure within that you mentioned earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's got a treasure, and everybody has some kind of a treasure that you haven't discovered yet. So when we do shadow work, we're exploring our own shadow and treasures and stuff. But when we're interacting with others, we're discovering theirs as well. And in that, a mirror of our own, even if it's
Is
on a,
there one treasure that we all share? Are there multiple treasures? Are both true, that there's a universal treasure and individual treasures?
I think both. And in fact, if you take a shamanic point of view, not only is there an individual treasure in the global one treasure, but there's these in between treasures, such as the treasure of our species, the treasure of humanity. So we have the treasure of my own spirit as a person, the treasure of humanity as a species, and the treasure of that which is above and beyond our own being and our own species, which brings us into the treasure of, like, maybe we have a pet that we love, maybe it's a dog, the treasure of that spirit. But then we have the treasure of all canines. And then we have the treasure of all the one spirit that holds all of them together. And that's true for every species: cats, dogs, dolphins, whales, deer, bear, everything. And plants and minerals, even. And so when you sense into the relationship of everything that you walk through, even your computer, every item that you have, it's like, what relationship am I having with it?
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
that brings us into the spirit of not only our own essence, But if we spend time truly with another animal or with another human being, the essence of that individual, and if we do a lot of experiences with lots of different individuals, lots of different people, we start getting a sense into the treasure of the species. And the
Wow.
same with an animal. Maybe we spend a lot of time with our one dog, but what happens if we spend time with lots of different dogs? We start getting a sense of the species. What happens if we have an experience with bears? Like I've had a lot of experiences with bears. I've had bears attack me. I've had bears just kind of hang out around me. And it's fascinating because every bear attack is a little bit different. I live on a mountain, I walk back, bears are in company. I had one bear, you're going to love this story. I had one bear. I was talking to my mom. I was going, oh, I have this feeling that I need to hang up. And so I said, Mom, I'll talk to you later. And I hung up and I walked around the corner and here was this two little baby bears went up a tree and this mama bear comes out and she's coming right at me. And
Wow.
she just eye contact, direct eye contact. She's just coming right at me, but she's not rawr, she's just coming right at me. And and I'm looking at her eyes and all I see is absolute motherly devotion. She had no desire to hurt me. She had no desire to kill me, but she had absolute mother devotion. And there was no doubt in my mind that she was going to take me out if she needed to. But that wasn't the point. I got so mesmerized by her eyes that I forgot to run. I forgot to do anything. So I just sat there and as she was coming at me, and she got within like literally 25 feet of me.
Mm.
And I was just lost in that mesmerized, just absolutely the beauty of that motherly love. And then I finally go, oh no, I need to run because she's going to. So I ran and she let me go. No big deal.
Right. Right. This well, as anything can do, like a fractal, this story really is a portal into everything that I'm curious about that we're dialoguing about. The capacity to be there in that moment. So, starting with emotion itself, just the energy of emotion, there's two things I've heard over the years. One, I heard from the famous photographer Norman Seeff. He's who shot the so many rock and roll icons, but you might remember the picture of Jim Morrison with no shirt on, arms stretched out, and long curly hair. That's him. But he
Mhm.
started out as a doctor in South Africa and emigrated to New York in the 70s and became this photographer, just a completely different thing. And he said to me when he was shooting my portrait, he said, emotion is an epiphenomenon of being in an animal body meant to adjust behavior and be moved on from.
Mhm.
That was number one. The two was more recently working with this fellow. I've been experiencing his work for about 30 years, Donnie Epstein, who founded Network Chiropractic.
Mhm.
And he's got the experience or view, it may not be the entire view, of emotion, that emotion only lasts seconds, maybe a couple of minutes at most. Anything after that is a thought. So I'm just curious about your staying with the story of the bear. So I'm imagining myself there with the bear. If I don't have Kim Barta's experience of previous bear experiences, and I'm in this new thing, maybe I'm a city guy, and I see the bear, and then what happens first in me is emotion, like normal, right? Like be
Right.
alert, look around, right? What happens next is often seems to be based on if I pull on my past, anything that gives me some idea of how to meet this moment, but it might not. It might shut me down. It
Mhm.
might get me to do something that upsets the mother bear and gets her to actually fulfill my fear of chasing me
Mhm.
or whatever it is. So I'm just curious how you see this whole interaction with the bears that can happen anytime
Mhm.
or angry humans
Mhm.
in the sense of how we work in a simple way to upgrade our capacity to be with the treasure of life, even when the treasure seems a little scary or a lot scary.
Mhm. Yeah. So I really love what you're saying here. And so often we don't actually have an experience with the external event that's happening. We have an emotional experience with the internal thought that's happening about it. And thought and emotion, they're so fast and so quick. They interact with each other in fractions of a second. Um, so I've also been attacked by a bear that was ferocious and did want to take me out that I survived. Okay. And so contrasting these two lets you know the difference between being present in the moment of what is versus assuming, right? So I was going up to, and I'm going to tell this story so that we can compare and contrast. Uh, I was going up a narrow corridor early in the spring with my dog, who's really good bear dog. He'll always tree bears and everything. He's never had a bear not. He's always been able to tree a bear or chase a bear away. And so he was up ahead of me and he got in a tuffle up there. And I go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't expect the bears to be out yet. And all of a sudden he came running downhill towards me. This bear turned him. It was the first time and the only time a bear has ever turned this dog. And that bear was coming after him. Ah! And he was angry. He was pissed. He was going to kill. He was going to do whatever he could. You could feel the difference between that and the other bear, right?
Yeah.
This bear was getting up out of the spring. He was hungry. He was annoyed that the dog bothered him. And he was angry enough that he could turn a really good bear dog. And he was coming down. I was in a narrow corridor. I couldn't go left. I couldn't go right. I couldn't run away. This bear was going to take out me and Louie and everything else. And Louie was running as fast as he could. He was just scared. I've never seen him that scared. And the bear was just ferocious and angry. And in that case, what I did was I played dominant grizzly bear in his own territory. I just went, "Rah!" And Louie's eyes got this big. He thought he saw God. He turned around and started barking at that bear. And I didn't think that bear could stop that fast, but it did. And it ran back uphill. And again, that one was only within 20 feet of me too by the time that happened. So
Wow.
noticing the moment, right? Because I could have interpreted the mother bear in the same way, right? And then I
Yeah.
could have just gone rah, and been mean, and she might have just said, well, "Fuck you! I'm going to kill you," right? And I could have been kind of docile with this one and just kind of tried to run away, and he would have taken me out without a doubt, right?
Yeah.
But by playing grizzly bear and by meeting the moment and going, what's the appropriate response to this moment given the external circumstance? Not treating all bears the same way and not all moments the same way. You can respond directly to the moment. And these are like extreme examples of how you can survive, right? But in terms
Yeah.
of humanity, it's like meeting the person in the moment and going, what's present there? And so I want to slow down a little bit because I've told a couple big stories now. And I know that what we really want to do here is emergent dialogue.
Yeah.
I want to let that start evolving now.
So we've got a variety of people listening, a
Mhm.
variety of places people find themselves in this very moment. One of you may be dealing with the loss of a loved one. Another may have had a big financial change up or down. Another of you may have had a diagnosis. And so some of you might have done years and years of meditation and things like this. So we're all hearing these stories. We're all hearing meeting the moment from the moment we're in, not even actually in the moment we're in, but our idea about ourselves and life is this like filter that we're listening through. How do we start to become aware of the difference, Kim, in your observation of, am I actually available to meet the moment as it is, as opposed to bringing my undealt with past and projecting it onto the moment and the people involved, or the grizzly bear?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So the first thing that comes up in my mind as you ask that is how we have constructs that arise. And those constructs usually come in the form of like ideologies. I have an idea of what this moment means versus what does this moment mean. And so if I come from a Buddhist meditative place, I might think that every moment needs to be met with absolute tranquility, in which case I would have been dead with that bear.
Yeah.
And that would have been okay too, right? Because it's all tranquil, right?
Right.
But there's also the idea um, of how do you meet the moment in a variety of ways, not just one way. And so ideologies often give us one template about how to meet a moment. And so what I really invite people into is getting the spirit of every template and getting
Mm,
the wisdom of each one of those, but then letting go of the templates.
mm.
And that allows us to have gold everywhere we go. And when we do our shadow work, we can go, what are my templates that come up? These are encrusted ideas of how life is or what a moment means. And when we take time to observe that arising, like if I responded to every bear the same way, I would be dead by now, first of all. But if I respond to every moment through the same ideology, I'm actually not relating intimately. I'm relating through an ideology. So how do I meet Scott right here in this moment if I'm responding out of an ideology?
Mhm.
How does Scott meet me if he's responding through an ideology? All we have is two AI ideologies talking back and forth to each other. There's no intimacy there. It's like you can predict those conversations.
Yeah. It's reminding me of the four levels of listening in Theory U.
Mm,
Level one, I project my past onto the conversation. That's downloading the past. Number two is I'm just debating. Well, what's the one thing I want to hear from Kim? And I'm internally discounting everything else. My goodness, how could Kim think creatively in that space unless he's got a lot of strength?
mhm,
Three, empathy. And four, listening for infinite possibilities. Like anything is possible. There's a way I can listen to you, the bear, the moment
mhm.
that's actually free from preset ideas.
Yeah.
And I may be terrified, but if I can be with the terror and be open and listen for anything is possible, then
Yeah.
maybe I start to sense the guidance of the way forward for everyone involved in the moment.
Mhm, mhm. I love that. Yeah.
Hmm. So there's some things that you've explained really, really, really precisely and deeply over time. And that's kind of what this work really calls for in your courses.
Mhm,
And I've taken Kim's courses, except for his trainings to be a facilitator, in particular, his Shadow Matrix course and Love Matrix courses. So these are very, very involved. I mean, there's a book with each one that's something like 200 pages. Like the amount of work, study, training, and academic understanding that's and life experience flowing through all this. But it really, really helps, especially I'm thinking about the Love Matrix course, where I had never thought about the fact that I could have a different expectation and understanding of what showing up is in a relationship.
mhm.
I didn't consider that you could rub my feet this week and next week I might buy you dinner, and that's love, that it
Mhm,
doesn't have to be at the same time in the exact same way. So
mhm,
I'm just going to leave that there for you having a launching off point about this, finding or noticing the inner treasure in a moment, a person, a bear, a tree,
mhm.
finding the recognizing the inner treasure in all of us, and being available to the creative nature of life rather than trying to control it through my ideas of certainty and trying to downsize everything so I can control it. So, what are your thoughts there,
Thank you.
feelings?
Yeah, so the Love Matrix is a love child of mine that grew out of working on the reservation for 30 years with these families. And I actually had this beautiful opportunity to have 5 generations of women, Native American women, in the room at the same time, talking about the trajectory of their life and their experience through the generations. I mean, what an amazing blessing.
5 generations.
5 generations in the room at the same time of women.
Wow.
Well, one was an infant.
Wow.
I guess you can't call her a woman, but she was a baby. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
And and so this trajectory is just beautiful. So yeah, the love matrix came out of just realizing that, first of all, working in a multicultural environment, that love shows up in lots of different ways. And that and so I started looking at and studying not just what we're supposed to look like, but how does it look like? Because we have all these ideas of what it's supposed to look like. And we have them from our own personal life experience, our primary attachment styles, but we also have them from psychology. And
Pause for a second, just for anybody who needs a refresher or doesn't know, what is an attachment style?
an attachment style is a way that we attach to our primary bonding. Okay. So maybe it was mother or father. That's the most common one, right? Now, sometimes we don't have a mother or father, but we have a mother or father figure, somebody who steps in for that. But anyway, the way that we primarily found attachment is sets up a style of the way that we perceive attachment in the future. So let's say that we had a very loving, caring, doting parent who just took care of us all the time. It's really easy for us to maybe we can develop that attachment a couple different ways. I can model that attachment and I can become a loving, doting, caring human being in my relationships. But I can also create a complement to that, which is I expect everyone to be loving, doting, and caring towards me all the time. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
attachment is a lot more complex than, in my opinion, than all the attachment books that I've read, that I've seen out there, because you have matching attachment and you have complementary attachment. Now that happens the other way. Sometimes I might have maybe an alcoholic parent. Now I might match that and become an alcoholic on my own and not be present for anybody. Or I might complement that and become a very loving, doting, caring person. And now this kind of understanding of attachment helps us understand why people from horrendous homes sometimes become the most loving, caring people there are. And people from loving, caring homes often can become a very narcissistic, self-centered people.
Wow.
So this whole story that there's an attachment style, yeah, there's an attachment presentation, but there are ways to respond to that attachment presentation. And sometimes we complement, sometimes we match, sometimes we do a combination of both. And
Wow.
that's true for every attachment style.
What have you noticed in your own self, your own development, and your senior students that has developed, or the skill sets that have developed to be able to really be flexible and nimble in meeting whoever,
Mhm.
however?
Yeah. So this is a part where we talk about, you said earlier about walling off. Now, if you think about a wall, that's a rigid structure, right?
Yeah.
And often that's what people come up with. It's walled off or it's blocked off, these rigid structures. Now, if you're inside the rigid structure, you can only operate within that structure. And if you're outside the rigid structure, you don't have access to what's inside the rigid structure to draw upon. So a lot of what healing work is about making those structures softer or gentle, dissolving them, making them at least porous, or actually dissolving away completely. And the more we dissolve away those encrusted storylines that lock us into ideologies or belief systems, as they dissolve away, now we have all of our consciousness available at any given moment, not just the dominant ego, what I call the dictator ego state, the one that says, oh, I'm the dominant ego, and all these other ones are here to serve me, right?
Right.
Do as we get into an egalitarian, I'm a collective. I'm a collective. I'm not an individual. I have all these aspects that have all these wisdoms that got to it from different perspectives. And as they come together in this coalition of oneness, so now I'm a oneness, but I'm a coalition at the same time. And every aspect has its own history. And so it can draw on that wisdom in different ways. And yet they can all be together as one. And so they can dissolve completely and be oneness. And so there's this dance between seeing the walled off, experiencing the suffering of that, dissolving that, bringing the other part in, and having the uniqueness of it as an individual within me, or the emergence of it as a oneness, as a whole oneness. And the me even disappears then, because the me is also an ego state, the one that I think that I am.
I was having an extraordinary conversation. In fact, this is the first podcast I recorded. I don't know if I'll release it in that order, with this gentleman who teaches out of Australia.
Mhm.
He goes by the name Fish because his last name is Gill, James Fish Gill, and he seems to have boiled down his entire body of work. It's all about repair, really. That's what he
Mhm.
teaches, is conscious communication and repair. And he said, for this to really fly, we have to be aware of four things. my very real longing and my very real pain, and your very real longing and your very real pain. For me, I'm curious how you hold this. It seems to give me a space to not get lost in my intellect about all these different parts that I have and you have. And then if there's three of us in the conversation, or I'm trying to track all these parts, I go, wait, can I just sense everyone's very real longing and their very real pain? So that if you start shouting at me and I'm with this with you, I can go, oh, what's happening for Kim? That what's his very real pain? That this is what needs to happen for him to feel like I might hear him better, as opposed to reacting and pushing back. I'm just curious, in your own work, when you bring the simplicity to, okay, person A is going to go see person B and practice listening for sensing the treasure in themselves, the other, and the environment.
Mhm.
What are kind of like the simple, boiled down, if you could be aware of these things, you're likely on your way, even though there's way more deeper to go. What are the simple levers and dials
Yeah.
of this?
So for me, when I'm in interaction, I'm looking at what's the treasure that this person in front of me is bringing. So for right now, Scott is bringing a lot of treasures of all these different people that he's met. Now, me, I live alone on a mountain. I don't meet a lot of people. So I can't bring that. All I can bring is my own consciousness, right? But Scott has all these different people and he brings those in, he ties them in so that there's this community happening. And so by noticing the treasure in the other person, that just creates a better relationship. Now, maybe a little bit of a contrast. What is the longing or what is the pain? That only seems to look at half of the interaction. So I want to look at the
Yeah.
treasure. I want to look at the passion. And generally, if I stay present with that, the longing, the pain is in a safe environment now. So the longing and pain comes up more cleanly generally. And even if it doesn't, it's I can still hold my own space, right?
Yeah.
Want to create a safe place where people bring up their own longing and pain if it's arising, or they can stay in their passion if that's what it is.
What's happening if you slow down at the moment radically? What's happening in your body when you're in an interaction with somebody who's going from like 0 to 100 in terms of their passion has become hostile energy and emotion, whether it's directed toward themselves, the environment, or you? What's happening with you physiologically if we watched you using your tools to be able to meet them, see the treasure, and create a safe environment for what's unfolding?
Mhm. Okay. So the first step is curiosity. Okay. The first step is actually owning who I am versus who they are, because I'm not going to absorb interjects or projections, right?
Real quick, what's the difference between an interject and a project for people who don't yet know that there are three classes of shadow?
Yeah. So um, a projection is when I take my stuff and I put it on somebody else. An interject is when somebody else is there and I'm absorbing it inside of me. So they're kind of intimately related. Person A projects, person B interjects that statement and feels awful about themselves. Okay. So now, if someone's projecting because they're yelling at me, that lets me know they're projecting. I don't have to. I don't have to participate in that exchange. Just like if somebody came up to me with money and said, "Hey, I have $1,000. I got it from doing, uh, trafficking young children," right? I
Yeah,
can, yeah, I'll take the $1,000, or no, I'm not going to take that $1,000, right?
yeah,
That's not money that I want,
right.
right? Same energetically. If somebody comes at me with a bunch of anger and projection, I can choose to take that exchange or not. I don't.
Yeah.
And then what happens is a curiosity. What's going on with this person? What's this passion about? Because energy is energy. And obviously, the person has a lot of energy. They're raging, right? So, what is that about? Curious. So, tell me about your anger. What are you angry about? Help me understand. You're this and you're that and you're this and you're that. And it's like, oh, you're really upset that somebody isn't the way that you want them to be. How is it that you really want people to be? Well, I want them to be this and this and this and this and this. Okay. I want you to imagine that world. What would that world be like if everybody was like that, the way that you want them to be? Now they start calming down, right? Because they get to go into their own world and it's not being
Mm.
imposed. Instead of me saying,
And while you're doing this, what are you doing with your breath and your body while you're asking these questions and being with them?
so for me, I'm not controlling my breath. Like a lot of people say, focus on your breath, focus on your body. What I'm doing is I'm radiating my treasure. And if I'm full in my own treasure, if I'm radiating, then nothing can come in. Okay. It can't come in because I'm full with my own treasure.
What's the difference between radiating one's own treasure in an authentic way and stepping into unknowingly or knowingly trying to be the hero and do radiating? I'm radiating my treasure right now, but I don't recognize that I'm actually not able to be intimate with what's arising. So I'm actually I'm putting a mask on of the hero. What
Mhm.
you're talking about is different than that. About radiating a treasure, it's not about I need to look good or avoid anything. There's something happening that to me doesn't sound like a normal or our well, the ego structure we're accustomed to when two
Mhm.
people aren't agreeing.
Yeah. So when I'm radiating, what happens is I'm at peace and calm, which means I don't have to try to change the other person. I don't have to try to change myself. I don't have to do anything. There's no push or pull going on. Right. So, like, if I'm just radiating and I just have curiosity, then the person just starts sharing and they can feel that. Generally, people remember when you said earlier, the first few moments of anger, everything else is a thought, right?
Yeah,
There's some truth to that. There's a little bit more because if you get angry enough that you get cortisol in your body, it takes about 20 minutes for the cortisol to dissolve.
right.
So, even if, yeah, but the premise is still very accurate. And that is that if I don't augment the anger, their anger is just going to burn out over the course of usually a few minutes. That's just
Mm.
pointless energy. If I don't keep aggravating the cortisol, there's no, it's really hard for people to yell at people much longer than a few minutes. They
Mm.
stop.
Run out of steam.
They just run out of steam when there's no reaction, right?
Right, right.
And so I'm just radiating and just holding that, and then I come from curiosity about what their passion is, because I'm living my passion, right? I'm not angry. I would like them to be able to live their passion, but they're not living it because they're angry.
I
So,
imagine there might be one or two of you out there like me who are on the sides of your awareness wondering if bears are at all like humans, is there ever a moment to come out like you did with the other bear, screaming and shouting and waving a log? Even if I'm not personally actually upset, but to act like it,
mhm,
is there ever an appropriate moment for that kind of
mhm.
interaction being called for?
Yeah. So I wasn't angry at the bear that was attacking me.
Right.
I just knew that that was the method that I needed to use. So I think that's the reason I'm responding to this very carefully is so many people justify their anger as righteous rage.
That's right.
And as soon as you say that, I would say you're probably just angry.
Yeah.
I don't buy into righteous rage in general. Okay.
Yeah.
I do think that you need to respond in appropriate ways, take care of yourself. If someone was literally going to attack me, I would defend myself, or I might not, depending upon the situation. I'll tell you about a Native American boy that gave me this wisdom. Okay. He had, somebody had done something to him and he had done something back and hurt them a little bit, right? They had hurt him, he hurt them back. They went back to their group, right? And now that group came out after this boy. Okay. And this boy was surrounded by these people. and he knew that he couldn't beat them all, right? Now, he could have gotten angry, he could have fought, he'd have just gotten beaten like crazy. But what he did was said, okay, you got me. Here I am. Do what you want to do. And he just laid there. And they hit him a little bit and kicked him a little bit. And there was no response. So they just went away. It's like,
Hmm.
it was fun to keep fighting somebody who wasn't going to fight back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sometimes righteous rage is the way to go. That person hurt me first. All I did was defending myself. You guys suck. Get the fuck out of my face, right? Something like that.
Right, right, right.
Or you can just go,
Yeah.
hey, it's the situation right here, right now. They're more powerful than me. They want to avenge the pain. I'll let them do it. That's the cycle that's going to happen here, whether I fight it or not. He could see it. He could see the cycle that had to happen. But he also could see that if he didn't push the system would resolve a whole lot faster.
Yeah. I've been contemplating some version of this for quite some time, and I love that this story came out. I've been finding myself and clients and students saying, shouting at somebody to create a change. If they make a change, or if you shout at me and I make a change, it's likely because I'm avoiding being shouted at, not because it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
And like, how can I organize my nervous system in such a way that it actually draws out your treasure without me having to say a word? Is really what I'm so touched by in this whole dialogue so far, is
Mhm.
like that opportunity to discover even greater coherency
Mhm.
in my nervous system that draws the best out of all of life for the benefit of everyone, not just for my own sake.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. And as we stay in that treasure within, and we just don't buy the exchange if the exchange isn't worth it, or if the exchange is going to happen, just going with the exchange in a way that's going to minimize the problem. We don't have complete control over everything, but we do
Yeah.
have control over how we're going to respond to the moment. And so we can be at a lot more peace with that. And as the exchange occurs, like if I stay in peace, like if I meet rage with rage, obviously rage invokes rage. Hate, if I meet hate with hate, more hate occurs. This is one of the problems I think we're having with the liberal conservative divide right now.
Yeah.
Hate, and then we go, well, that's unjust. I'm going to meet it with righteous hate. And they go, oh, yeah, I'm going to meet you with righteous hate. I'm going to reach you with righteous anger. I'm going to meet you with righteous anger. I'm going to meet you with righteous violence. I'm going to meet you with righteous violence. It's just escalates. Hate begets hate. Violence begets violence. Rage begets rage. So if you want more hate, anger, and violence in the world, meet hate, anger, and violence with more hate, anger, and violence. You'll get more of it. But if you meet hate, anger, and violence with calmness and peace, then they don't get that. Cortisol doesn't have a closed loop that keeps moving up the spiral. It's one way and it stops and there's nothing else going on, and finally it just dissolves, and now you can have a decent conversation with somebody.
Have you noticed? I've noticed in myself what seems like over the years an addiction that I've chosen to meet and heal to stress hormones in my own body. That I didn't realize that I had an addiction to living at a certain energy state, even after decades of
Mhm.
meditations and mentors. And this is, I would find myself after a retreat or after a big happening, bumping heads with somebody and going back to a familiar state of stress hormones and
Mhm.
energy. Do
Mhm.
you see this in your clients?
Mm. I see that in a lot of people. I see it in myself. Facebook is a great way to do this, right? You go through
Yeah.
Facebook and there's all these wonderful comments, blah, blah, blah. And then you find that one that triggers you. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, and "Wah!" Facebook is a cesspool for reinforcing your negative shadow, right? It's
Right.
just filled with it. And you can just watch it happen. And as well as beautiful things too, right? I mean, it's a very broad platform. But
Yeah.
for me, if I want to understand where my shadow is, all I do is go on Facebook and go down until I get triggered. And it's like,
Huh.
oh, I got a shadow there.
It sounds like you actually are in a place in life where you can actually willingly do that as an exercise.
Mhm.
Like, you're like, let's just see if there's any shadow ready to be worked with today.
Yeah.
Not like you're looking to hurt or suffer, but you're
Well,
actually interested in something that not only frees up your treasure, but frees up your treasure for the benefit of others. Like, I don't get you as a guy who's just like, how can I get more goodies just for myself?
right, right. Yeah, no. Yeah.
So this training, this opportunity to train for folks, some of folks who are listening, you may really have some established, wonderful strategies and ways of meeting life in your nervous system. And yet the work is never done. The opportunity to grow is never over with. I'm thinking actually of Gurdjieff, who I'm told had paid a man from France a lot of money to be an annoyance to his senior students,
Mhm.
because they were able to establish themselves in a sort of a consciousness that seemed really, really peaceful, but the work wasn't done, and there were aspects of their own psyche they weren't yet dealing with. So he
Mhm.
literally paid this guy, who ran back to Paris, and they sent somebody after him, paid him more money to get him to come back because his role seemed so important, to
Mhm.
perturb some of these things back up into awareness so they could get worked with. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's right, because it's so easy for us to do bypasses of our own work. And we can do that through any form of addiction. And one of the ones that you and I are aware of is spiritual bypass, right? If I can just sit in this blissful state, I'm fine. But then I get out of it and I yell at the, dog that pooped on my front door,
Right.
Never, right? you know,
Yeah.
so like, am I really there or did I just spiritually bypass it? Now, there's a
Right.
value to it. I mean, I have a mixed feeling with the term spiritual bypass. There's a valuable insight into it, but it's valuable to be able to sit in presence and practice a calm neurological system so that you're in healing and you're in these spiritual states. But the rest of it is to also hold that when we walk through the rest of life.
Yeah. Well, I know in the model that we're both familiar with, the stages model that really shows how we can grow if we're in circumstances that are conducive, and we get these later awarenesses mirrored back to us, we can recognize them.
Mhm.
That in the later stages, um, it can be really easy to set up camp and think we're right
Mhm.
and everybody else is wrong.
Mhm.
In my experience, it's not about getting somewhere, but it's about, as these later stage materials point at, recognizing that there's not an over there and an over here. On a relative level, the fork is in the drawer where the forks are, and the spoons are where the spoons are, and that's how they're organized. And I know the difference of which one for which purpose. But I also want to recognize the treasure in everything. I also
Mhm.
want to recognize the that every challenge can be a gift, so that I get this nimbleness. I
Mhm.
guess that's what I'm trying to pull out through our dialogue about the choice to grow, is like, everything is an opportunity to grow
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Everything's an
to be nourishing presence
opportunity.
for everything else to grow.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that. And it's like that nimbleness again means if I'm in a template that says, oh, I can only be, eh, again, the storyline of there's a place to get to in consciousness or spirituality, and it looks like this. And therefore, I'm going to hold on that mask, a truly embodied mask for most people, right? I'm going to meditate. I'm going to be in this spiritual, peaceful state. And that's the pinnacle of awareness, and I'm at the peak and I'm so this amazing. Oh no, but I don't have an eye, so I'm so selfless. Aren't I amazing how selfless I am? And and you just see the spin happen, right? And I'm speaking this because I know living through it, right? We live through these things. So I'm not making fun of other people out there. I'm saying this is a natural flow of consciousness, is our own little nuances. People do these little head trips on themselves, on ourselves. This is part of the spirit of humanity, right? The
Yeah.
humbleness and the narcissism both. And so we touch into that and go, oh, look at my narcissism there. Oh, look at my low self-esteem. Oh, yeah. What happens if these two talk? The low self-esteem can teach something to the narcissism. The narcissism can teach something to the low self-esteem. And now we can be in balance and equilibrium with just what is life. And this is the problem, is that we know that we're not there when anything in life bothers us, because ultimately Either I am in acceptance with reality or I'm not. And if I'm
Hmm.
bothered by it, then I'm saying that I'm smarter than reality.
Hmm.
I'm
What do
superior
you
to
mean by bothered as opposed to encouraged to, like, some things happen in life that are not comfortable, but they're an encouragement to go in a different direction?
every time we feel discomfort, that's a wake up call for more wisdom. And it
Mm.
might be, yeah, I need to own something in myself. I need to release something in myself. I need to do something to bring life into balance here. But so often, what we're doing is running around trying to change the external world rather than going, what's going on with the internal world that I'm having a problem with the external world the way it is?
I'm having a movement here about shamanism since that's one of your backgrounds,
Mm,
and there's a it sounds almost like the worldview coming through in part through the shamanic worldview, which is like when I'm arguing with reality, I'm actually under the illusion that what I'm seeing is fixed and
mhm,
it's stuck that way. I'm
mhm,
not able in that moment to recognize that everything is made of creative energy and how I meet it makes a
mhm.
difference in how it shows up. What does that evoke for you?
I love that. I love the way you describe that. That's so intimately delicious, you know? And that is, when we see the external world and we're having an issue with it, we have a fixation of in our mind about what the world should be because I'm so superior. And if everybody did things the way that I want them to be done, then it would be fine. Which of course breaks down because everybody wants the world to be a little bit different. And that's why we have to work together as human beings. Otherwise, we devolve into hate, anger, and violence.
Yeah.
But even if your idea is the most supreme idea of how to create peace on earth, it's still your idea of how to create peace on earth. It's not everybody's idea.
Wait,
And and it also comes down to the whole idea that somehow I am wiser than reality. I'm wiser than evolution. I am wiser than God. I'm wiser than uh, spirituality. I'm wiser than the universe in general. And that's kind of a bold statement for someone to make. I would encourage us every time we think we know better than reality to maybe step back and go, the universe is a little bit bigger than we are, maybe, and it's got a little more history behind it than
a little bit
a little bit. And maybe there's a little bit of arrogance when we think we know better than the entire history of the
or a
universe.
lot.
Yeah, just might be worth contemplating that a little bit.
Actually getting ready to suffer more. I'm thinking about, or not thinking, I'm feeling this kind of remembering the Love Matrix course and um, the piece about how the ways we exchange or show or share and receive and recognize love back and forth may not be at the same time. That's
Right.
coming forth right now in this moment about how I can actually be more free and nimble with reality
Mhm.
by remembering, recognizing, and maybe seeing that my idea of the timeline of something happening or unfolding may not be the most supportive for me or other people, and
Mhm.
that there's a way I can actually learn to be curious more
Mhm.
and present more such that I'm recognizing how life is guiding me at right timing. Right timing. What about
Mhm.
right timing, Kim? Is
Mhm.
that for you?
Beautiful. I love that you're bringing this in, this asynchronous aspect of reciprocity. So, in my experience, the universe is always bringing in balance. It's always creating some kind of a balance, and um, but that balance doesn't always happen on our timeline, the timeline that we want it to be. So, if I actually hold a wider time frame, I might realize that actually things are happening really beautifully just the way they're happening. And this moment is the most perfect, exquisite moment. If you think about it, this moment, Scott, is the pinnacle of consciousness.
Say
This
more.
moment, this moment right here is the pinnacle of consciousness. My consciousness is the pinnacle of my consciousness. Your consciousness is the pinnacle of your consciousness. Right now is the moment of the pinnacle of the evolutionary of consciousness. Every moment is. And
Wow.
what if we treated each moment as for what it is. It's the pinnacle of the evolution of the universe right now in this moment.
When I lived in an ashram, a monastery, there was a temple, and it was considered the most one of the most powerful spots in the ashram.
Mm-hmm.
And I would spend hours in there doing, meditating, and there would be chanting practices or
Mm-hmm.
different things that would happen in there. And I moved to Los Angeles in 1999. Los Angeles is, generally speaking, mostly a very different environment than a monastery,
Mm-hmm.
give or take. And I have found that in 22 years of going to the same gym in this busy city of Los Angeles, anything that could come up in life comes up at that gym. My judgments, my worries, my self-assessments,
Mm-hmm.
all sorts of things. And I remember at some point feeling stuck in a way that felt like I felt as a kid, not enough, pick blast, and something's wrong, and screw those guys, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not just one time. When my energy had dropped, and then something came through, like the treasure of life started to whisper in my ear and said, how would you be seeing this if you were in the temple at the ashram?
Mm-hmm.
Would anything change about how you'd see the so-called others in the gym if your context was, I'm in the ashram right now? I was like, of course it would. My job was to be welcoming. I was on the security team, but my job was to be welcoming regardless of how something was presenting. So I had a context, and I had the belief that there was an energy that was supporting my ability to do that. Well, that's available everywhere. And just being willing to consider that was enough that I could start to see the so-called other people I was feeling judged or judging differently. And
Mm-hmm.
they didn't do anything different. The room didn't change, but in an instant, everything changed.
Everything
What do you
changed.
see about that in these moments, these human interactions, like these ways we can resource ourselves, and then everything looks different? Like, what are the simple resources that you see that anybody at any stage of development could work with and practice for this treasure to reveal?
I think you just described it, Scott. You draw on your resources. You go, how would mom have done this? How would God look at it? How would the people in the ashram look at it? Life is the ashram, right? Every
Yeah,
moment,
yeah.
right?
What would love see? What would love say? What would love do?
Exactly. How would Jesus do it? Whatever your thing, how would Buddha handle this
Right.
situation? Right? Whatever. But then the thing that I step back one more step then from is, and then what if I let go of the template of that? Because now I don't have to live in the template. I can use the template as a wisdom sourcing, but not be trapped by the template. So I don't have to pretend to be Buddha. I can go, how would Buddha handle this? Oh, that's a great way. How does that work for me right now in this moment? How would Jesus do it? How would mom do it? How would dad do it? How would Scott do it? Right? How would Kim do it? Right? And
Right.
now I've got a variety of things. And eventually the templates fall away because you just have all those resources, have all of these ways of responding.
Like an upshift to that, I'm imagining could be something like, at an earlier stage, I go, what would the Bible say, or what would Jesus say, or what would Buddha do, as though there's only one answer. And then
Right.
as I grow in these practices and I have a deeper relationship with my body and my breath,
Mm-hmm.
I go, what did Jesus feel like when he got confronted with a bear and got resourced? What did his resourcing feel like? What did it feel like to be Buddha in a difficult moment and suddenly recognize my resources? So I'm
Mm-hmm.
not focusing on my projection about a historical Buddha or Jesus or Moses, but I'm more interested in, like, what might it be like to feel resourced?
Right. Yeah.
Where I'm not freaked out, I'm not shut down, I'm curious, and I know I'm safe. What
Yeah.
might that be like? And if I
Right.
can feel it, can I radiate it into the environment without needing anyone to know it's coming through me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the more of us, the better.
Right.
There's a saying, what is it? May you live in interesting times.
Mm-hmm.
and that difficult times make strong people. What do you think about that? Given the time we're living in, like there's some folks, maybe a lot of folks, who didn't vote for the current United States administration, who are really, really scared, angry, worried. And that's inside of a context that things are going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep wondering, well, what if it's not pretty the way things are playing out, but in the longer arc of time, what if actually this is the best way to actually accomplish a more luminous future for everybody by confronting us with some things that we have to look inward in ourselves too, not just point the finger at the White House or the Congress or the state governance. What are your feelings about all this?
I love that. I love that. And one of the what we can draw back on history with this too. I mean, Hitler, one of the worst experience of global harm and destruction in the history of the world. And what came out of that was the United Nations, which brought in more peace to Europe than Europe has ever experienced since the dawn of Europe being a European aspect of multiple nations, right? Longer period of peace than ever before.
Hmm.
So the point is, even in the face of what we might call horrendous people, it's how we handle that leads to the evolution of what's going to be. And if we meet hate with hate, we're going to grow hate. If we meet anger with anger, we're going to grow. If we meet judgment with judgment, we're going to grow judgment.
Yeah.
But if we hold the treasure of consciousness in our hearts as we walk through the world, now we're not spewing hatred on Trump Republicans.
Right.
And if liberals are not spewing hatred onto Trump Republicans, eventually Trump Republicans are going to start viewing us differently. Because if you take a look at it from a liberal perspective, look at all the hate that's coming at us from the Trump Republicans. But if you can,
and vice versa.
exactly, if you put yourself in their shoes, look at all the
Yeah.
hate that's being spewed from Democrats towards Republicans.
Yeah.
And
I know
so,
some extraordinary human beings who happen to align with, for one reason or another, aspects of the Trump Republican platform. And they're
mhm,
really wonderful people. They're great with others in their lives,
mhm,
and they're being attacked.
yeah, just
Being
because
attacked.
you see the treasure of gold in it. And this is where I come back to, no matter what's going on, there's a bit of gold. There's a bit of treasure. There's a bit of treasure in what the Trump Republicans are doing. As much as ideologically I might have issues with it, if I can see that treasure of gold, if I can see the treasure, then I don't have to come from hate. I can go, oh, let's work with this. Instead of coming to a knee-jerk reaction, go anything. I mean, this is what the Republicans did, right? When Barack got in, anything that Barack presented, they were going to do the exact opposite.
Right.
No questions asked, right? We're just going to do the opposite. And we're doing the same thing. Anything Trump proposes, we're just going to do the exact opposite. We're going to completely demonize it immediately without actually taking time to go, what's really going on? What value might be going on here?
Right. And not even just in the United States. It's happening in Italy. It's happening in Germany. It's happening in the
Mm-hmm.
countries in Africa. It's happening in South America. Like there's this, seems like this global opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for a fresh consideration of how do we share
Mm-hmm.
Earth and the resources with all living beings, whether those are trees or bugs or people,
Mm-hmm.
without getting lost in how we did it yesterday is how we're supposed to do it tomorrow. You know, the United Nations, yes, wonderful gift. NATO, wonderful gift. But how do we know for certain that those are the best structures going forward? We
Exactly.
don't. And that's an example of a bigger system of templating, as Kim was talking about, I think, which is
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, we have to preserve Social Security exactly the way it was and Medicare exactly the way it was. And but how do, life is dynamic and creative. I mean, I've heard it said that don't eat the same thing 3 days in a row or you start developing reactivity to it, even though that
Mm-hmm.
could be a healthy thing. Like if I eat eggs every day of the week, I'm likely to develop a reactivity to eggs.
Mhm.
So how do I develop more nimbleness and
Mm.
ability to be interested in what life can bring forth, as opposed to attaching to things for this
Mm.
illusion of safety through certainty?
Right, right. I love that illusion of safety through certainty, because the mind feels safe that it doesn't have to think of creative new ideas. But that doesn't mean you are really safe.
Yeah,
The narrow mindedness, the illusion of safety by making the mind feel safe that it doesn't have to be spontaneously reacting and responding and adapting isn't
yeah,
necessarily safe. And
yeah,
I love what you're saying right there.
We have these ideas that we recognize about how things we think things should be without realizing that that is such a limitation on the wonderful possibilities of life.
Anytime we say should, it lets us know that we're in a constriction. And
yeah,
so we go with the shoulds and we look at what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities here. We free ourselves from that constriction. And that makes us more nimble, makes us more flexible, more adaptable. So, what is the beauty and the juice in this? I mean, it's interesting because when Obama came up with his version of Obamacare, it was virtually the same thing as Mitt Romney's, but the
Hmm.
Republicans rejected it outright. I mean, the difference was so minor, but it was like, oh my God, Obamacare, worst thing in the world, you know? When Mitt was
Yeah.
proposing, they're going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And the same thing here. Here's a good example. They're looking at not letting the pharmaceutical industry control the FDA. That's something the Democrats have been saying we should do for a long time. Well, they're
Right.
actually doing it. But here we are. Here are the Democrats screaming and yelling, oh my God, this is so awful. But it's like, look
Right.
at the juice here. They're doing the same thing, right? They're doing what we
Right.
said we wanted to have happen, but never did. And it's like, who
And
wants
this is the
pharmaceutical?
ability to zoom out. You know, we talk
Right.
about zooming in and zooming out.
Yeah.
Like if I zoom in like a camera too close to something, then I'm like, this is not that. I don't like it. But if I can zoom out in
Yeah.
time and space, I
Yeah.
can see, wait a minute. Oh,
Yeah.
let's just give them a minute and see if this is actually going in a direction we were all working towards in our own ways.
Yeah.
Or in the relationship in the car, you
Mhm.
want Thai food and I want Mexican, and we're both really hungry and on the verge of angry. If I can just zoom out and go, we both care about food, we both care about each other,
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
both want to have a good time. How
Uh-huh.
might I breathe and soften my body to
Right.
contribute to that? And then there trust that there's actually a way forward.
Yeah. What if we all sent massive letters instead of sending massive letters about how awful they are? What if we all sent massive letters to the one thing that we think they're doing right? Good job separating pharmaceuticals from the FDA.
Right.
Pharmaceutical corporations should not be running the FDA. What if we all sent
Right.
we raised 350 million letters of approval for that, right? You think that wouldn't
Yeah.
shape their behavior? They'd
Yeah.
be, oh yeah,
And
look at this.
and given quantum entanglement, we don't have to write a physical letter. It's nice because that might be their love languages as words
Right,
of acknowledgement and appreciation.
right. Yeah.
However, to actively be aware that I am connected, you are connected, we are connected to everything
Yeah.
inextricably. And that if
Yeah.
I actually extend, without trying to be special, if I actually extend a blessing stream that's
Mhm.
not mine to
Mhm.
you, whether you know it or not. I don't have to call you on the phone, but it will impact you. Like, what's the nourishment blessing stream that doesn't have to agree with things we know are egregious or
Right.
problematic, but
Right.
that sends coherent energy to the representation or to the people in the corporations or to my boss or to my disenfranchised parent? If I actively can move into that blessing stream for myself and whoever I'm considering, what might happen
Mhm.
differently?
Mhm. Exactly.
It's no wonder that the garden doesn't grow if I cover it up and don't water it.
Mhm.
But if I expose it to sunshine and clean water, well, what are the elements of that energetically in how we relate to one another?
Yeah. So this is where we have this beautiful conversion of the material world and the energetic world coming together. So if I exude the energetic blessings, then I walk around in the concrete world with that energetic blessings. And people in the concrete world feel that and feel the difference of that. And that populates on the concrete level, which when their energy changes on the concrete level, it changes on the energetic level, of course. And now that just spins and spins and spins and spins.
So powerful.
And if I meet you energetically with anger or rejection, then that solidifies that anger and rejection, and that populates all around.
So we're moving towards, and I can feel that we're moving towards this completion. There's a question I like to ask every dialogue partner on the show. And it stands on the foundation of this beautiful saying that I've brought to my students over the years from Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki, who opened the Zen Center of San Francisco in the 60s, a very realized Zen master, an extraordinary being. And he'd say, death is certain, the time is not. What is the most important thing? What does that evoke for you in your life, Kim? Death is certain, the time is not. What is the most important thing?
It invokes in me that the most important thing is to stay fully present and alive and energetic. Because if I stay present, alive, and energetic without templates, without concepts, without constructs about deriving me or controlling me, that will help spread that energetically in the world. And that the real change in the world comes from each individual's grassroots change, personal change and growth. And as that energy spreads, it spreads in these secret ways that can't be controlled top down through dictatorships, right? Like you can't dictate, well, your energy level has to be different, right?
Yeah.
Dictate that, my consciousness can't be clear, right? Right? So the most radical form of that is to just I'm going to just stay clear in my consciousness, in my love, in my openness, in my adaptability. And actually what came to me is to just be exactly the way I've been being when you said that.
Thank you. Thank you for being you and bringing all your curiosity and openness to the moment here with me, with us. Mm-hmm. As we mentioned at the top of the show, and they'll be in the show notes, you can explore Kim's work at kimbarta.org. There's some really powerful self-paced courses there. The deeper you go, you have the opportunity down the road to be on the list to work with Kim. As last I knew, he's got at least a 3-year waiting list for private work. But if you start doing that work with his courses, you bump up on the list, and there are other opportunities to engage with Kim around the world in person. So you can find out about all of that at kimbarta.org. Do we have the possibility of looking forward to a book from you at some point?
Yeah, my books, I have a trilogy on love that's coming out. It should be out this year sometime. I can't guarantee when. We're shooting for Thanksgiving Day, but we wanted to tweak some changes and wanted to make sure the quality was good rather than the speed. So I think we'll have it ready to release by this spring. I might choose not to release it until fall, just because a lot of times in the summertime people go on vacations and aren't into reading a book. Maybe they are. I'm open to feedback, everybody. Should it be released in the spring or should it be released in the fall? I don't know. So, but at any rate, yeah, there's Love, Relationship, and Flow, which is the meta model on love that we kind of dipped into a little bit. It's got the love matrix. It's got the golden triangle. It's got flow tools that help us understand how to be in flow with people so that we don't end up in these problem spaces so much. This works for any kind of relationship, whether it's parenting, whether it's romance, whether it's friendship, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a business colleague, whatever. You can use these tools, and I'm getting a lot of positive reviews on them. And then there's the Love, Relationship, and Flow journal, so you can apply it directly to your life very well. And then the third one is I'm going to hold back the title yet. But it's more of an inspirational book. It's a little more of a
wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to having you back to dialogue together again, particularly to support the people getting connected to the material in these books. So we'll stay in touch about that.
Okay.
And just love you, man. Just really, really love you.
I love you too. It's so delightful to be with you. You've got such a beautiful glow, and I just have always enjoyed being around you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, listeners, I recommend you listen to this maybe more than once because we cover a lot of ground pretty quickly together. And I also invite you to listen in such a way that you're listening past the words to the feeling, because there's something present that Kim and I are experiencing with one another that's not just for us and it's not owned by us. And that really is where the juice of this podcast is the space between the words. We're going to share concepts and tools and practices, but the real juice is the treasure of all of life pulsing behind and between the words. So with that said, may the fruit of all of our inner work uplift all beings as well as the earth. May we be happy, may we be well, may we feel thoroughly loved. May it be so, and so it is. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Loving the episode? Click to follow, like, and share it as widely as possible. Want to go deeper with the choice to grow? Explore the show notes. You'll find links there for going deeper with our guests, as well as how to work with me in the work of waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to join you in the next episode.